Welcome to another episode of Vital Talk. And today on the show, we have Dr. Erin Thole. Dr. Erin, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. And you were one of the people I remember talking to that actually started out in the industry with a mentor. And that's rare.
Yeah.
So I love to touch on that in the interview. But why don't we get into your background? How did you start out in the field? And, how'd you get here today? What are you looking to do?
Well, it was kind of for me a progression. I started off as a personal trainer, and then, like you mentioned, I had a mentor. So through a bunch of different channels, long story short, I kind of found myself in the middle of like, oh, hey, there's this whole other world of natural health care out there. I really vibe with this and I really want to learn more about it. And I just knew like a couple people. I knew a chiropractor, I knew a naturopath, and her husband owns Nutridyne and things like that. So I just kind of got kind of like integrated into the system. And through working, with the naturopath that I knew and her husband as their office manager, they just kind of took me under their wing and started mentoring me. And then they paid for a lot of my schooling and things like that. So I went to Northwestern Health Sciences University and did a lot of nutritional programs there, detoxification programs, healing through food, stuff like that. And then I went to Trinity School of Natural Health and got my CNHP, which is Certified Natural Healthcare Practitioner certification. And I'm currently working on my naturopathic doctorate. So I have, kind of an interesting story in the way that the universe was just like, here you go, this is what you're supposed to do, just kind of threw it at me. And my practice has just kind of evolved, from there. For a while, I worked with a chiropractor as like a wellness consultant in their practice. And then from there, I joined a natural healthcare co-op and worked there for a while. And then I went and rented an office with two of my really good friends. One's an acupuncturist and one is a massage therapist. And now I'm location independent. That was all in Minnesota, where I'm from. And now I live in Texas and I am location independent. So I see all of my clients either on the phone or on Zoom. 99% of the time it's on the phone. And I have clients, excuse me, all over the country. I have a couple of international clients. So yeah, it's just kind of been a progression through the years.
I love that. You got definitely a lot in that story right there. And so, quite a bit to unpack for the reader. What getting mentors, let's go back to that real quick, right? Because you mentioned them, but I want to go a little bit deeper. What did they, besides obviously paying for your schooling, that's huge. And I wish, somebody did that for me. But
Yes.
what did they actually teach you that you never thought about? Or did they just show you the path of this, being like a holistic doctor, et cetera?
Well, I would literally sit in, if clients were okay with it, sit in with client appointments and, learn like how to do it, like basically how to conduct an appointment. Yes. But then also, how to take the information, the education that you have, and then move that over to like actual clinical application and how to do a proper assessment of someone's health and looking at the body as one whole functional unit. Because even a lot of functional medicine practitioners they're using natural healthcare means, but they're still just looking at symptoms and not getting to the root of the issue. So that was one thing that was really kind of driven into me. And I'm thankful for that, is like, you're not looking at just the symptoms. You're looking at why do they have the symptoms in the first place? So we're not giving you red rice, yeast extract or something like that for high cholesterol. We're figuring out why you have high cholesterol in the first place, kind of thing, as an example. So it was a lot of like, here, read this textbook, here, read this textbook, and then we'll talk about it, kind of thing. So it was literally like an education, like a one-on-one education, where I was reading the books that she had read when she was in school to become a naturopathic doctor. We were talking about the books. We were like, I was sitting into appointments and all of that stuff. So I just really like learned basically like how to be a naturopath and how to pick up on subtle things and really connect the dots when someone's talking about this whole laundry list of symptoms that they have and conditions that they've been diagnosed with, how to connect the dots for all of those things. So
That's
it was really like literally a hands-on, one-on-one education.
I think that's really cool, right? Because a lot of time for most doctors, probably until they get out in the field, they read the theory, but they don't really have the practical applications. And here you had the practical applications and the theory in hand from day one. So I feel like that really helped you speed the whole process up,
Yeah.
right? In terms of learning of when to do what for a patient. What maybe you checked out like, hey, this is what applies today in school. This is the future they're teaching us that they weren't taught, but this is something that she does different. So I think you get the best of both worlds. So
Mm-hmm.
that's awesome. Do they teach you anything on the business side that you didn't think about before, or when you were in school, you're like, I wish they taught us this?
I mean, we don't in school, you don't really learn that much about marketing or advertising other than do it. And word of mouth is the best, advertising kind of thing.
Definitely agree.
Yeah, I mean,
What about the
that's
mentors, like on the business side? What do they teach you?
in terms of marketing.
Yeah, or just grow, or just having a great practice.
Yeah, I mean, be good at your job and get referrals from your clients that are existing. I mean, that's really how she ran her practice is like I get referrals from, my clients. And I think she did do like a biz to biz kind of group and stuff like that, which I don't know if they do that in Texas or everywhere, but that's a big thing in Minnesota is biz to biz, like just business networking groups and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
I feel like you naturally did that, by the way, when you started your office originally, and you had your friend that was the acupuncturist and the chiropractor, etc.
Yeah,
So you
yeah. The
had
three
that
of us,
advantage.
that was really cool because yeah, we really just kind of referred to each other when it was appropriate and stuff like that. So that worked out really, really well. Yeah.
I think that's the first level when I was teaching another doctor, um, about the process. The first thing you got to do, you got to build out really good referral network,
Mm.
and then the second thing is your referral systems, because nothing beats word of mouth, right? So when I was interviewing Dr. Kate Kelly actually on this podcast, she talks about how whenever she's like trained herself, whenever somebody gives her a compliment, she softly mentions a referral, you know.
Yeah.
So stuff like that I think can go a long way. What marketing method worked the best for you outside of word of mouth and referrals? Because I think that is the best, obviously. I'll
Yeah.
always say that.
I think everybody knows that. Yeah. Um, I advertise in two different small neighborhood, like weekly newsletter, newspaper kind of things. Is it weekly or is it monthly? It's monthly. One is quarterly, one's monthly. And they're just like neighborhood, newspaper, what's happening in your neighborhood, kind of things. So that actually has worked out really, really well. I have like a ton of clients on like one particular street in this one neighborhood, which is really cool to have like neighbors and whole families and stuff like that. So that's actually worked out for me and it's relatively cheap to do. So,
It's super fascinating for me, by the way, because most of the time when I talk to doctors, in fact, I've had doctors on that tell me, hey, don't go on newsletters, don't waste your money on magazines, etc. Right? Whereas your experience is the complete opposite. And it just kind of goes to show that if you've got the right audience and the right newsletter, it can still be effective. Even the old
yeah.
school methods, I'm sure even radio could still be effective, even though I'm in the digital world. But so tell me about that newsletter. How did you find it? What made you advertise in it? And then like, did you improve your ads over time? I think it's really a rare topic on the show that we don't discuss.
Yeah. So, the two neighborhoods that I advertise in are right next to each other. They butt up to each other. And I lived in one and I coached CrossFit in the other one. And so it was easy to just pick those two to advertise in. And I started with the one that I coached CrossFit in. And because I knew a lot of people in that neighborhood already anyway. Like a lot of the members of the gym and stuff like that lived obviously in that neighborhood. But I was like, I don't know if they all know what I do. So if they see like my face, you know, in this monthly newsletter thing, they might be like, oh, hey, I know this chick, you know? So that really helped from that perspective, because it did like start conversations at the gym and stuff like that. People were like, I saw you in this magazine. I didn't know you did that, you know? So, so that one was really helpful. And then the other one, I started just kind of like as I'll try this just because the neighborhoods are right next to each other. And just the type of people that lived in that neighborhood that I lived in at that time were really into like healthy lifestyle, you know, kind of stuff. Active people, people that, you know, really care about organic food and where their food comes from and all of that stuff. So it just made sense, you know, to advertise in that one. So that one has been successful, not as successful as the other one, but still worth my time. And then I submit an article, you know, for each publication, the monthly one every month, and then the quarterly one once a quarter, you know, just to kind of do more than just the ad in there. And both of them offer that for free. Like it doesn't cost you any extra to put an article in. So
I love that. And what were the costs again?
for the one that's monthly, it's like $550 for 6 months. And then, which is super cheap. And then the other one that's quarterly is 600. So it's,
Awesome. That's still fairly cheap, right? That's like
yeah.
$100 per, appearance on these magazines. And are they newsletters? I guess the same thing, basically.
One is more
Um,
like a glossy magazine type thing, the quarterly one, and then the other one is like a little newspaper, kind of like a little neighborhood newspaper kind of thing. It's a few, you know, maybe 10 pages max long. And um, yeah, so they do doorstep to delivery, and then they also, it's all online too.
that's really interesting. And then, did you always think you were going to do the newsletters? Did they find you? How did you start that process?
I don't remember. They didn't find me. I looked into the Garden Oaks one, which is the um, monthly one. And I was like, maybe I should try this kind of thing because I saw it out somewhere. And I was like, maybe I should advertise in this, just kind of check it out. And then once that one was doing well for me, then I was like, I'll look at doing one in the Heights too. So
Do you have you tracked metrics? Like, have you asked people like, "Hey, where'd you find us?" or whatever, and they're like, "The
yeah,
newsletter," or whatever, right?
yeah. I ask everyone that I do a consultation with, like how
How'd
they
you
heard
find
about
us?
me.
That
Yeah.
is the gold question, guys. And we can pause there for a second because I think that is so important. Tracking your leads, right? First, it starts with the referral network. Then it starts with building it out and making sure it's solid. Then you start your marketing channels. But tracking those leads, that's the way you really scale because then you can double down your investments on whatever is working. So hats off to Dr. Erin for actually doing that, and knowing those metrics. And Dr. Erin, were there any particular types of ads the newsletters did that worked for you, or did they just use your picture and like a slogan you came up with? Have you tested that?
It's just a little ad. It's always the same. It's a ad that just says like basically a rundown of what I do kind of
Mhm.
thing. Like, are you dealing with any of these kind of symptoms kind of thing? And then just listing like the main bullet points of what I do, you know, nutritional counseling, food sensitivity panel, hormonal panels, toxicity panels, micronutrient panels, you know, all of those kind of things. And then that they can get a free 45-minute consultation. Um, and then the article is different every month, you know, just depending on the season, what's going on at that time of the year, you know, all that stuff. So
That's still super cool that you've had that experience. Are you thinking of actually scaling up the newsletter? What are kind of the next steps for your practice to grow?
um no, I'm not thinking about scaling up the newsletter at all. I think, well, I'm just trying to, right now, I have kind of an interesting situation, I guess, or a different kind of situation. So, um, the beginning of 2019, I had my son. And so I took a few months off for maternity leave. And then it's just been kind of like building, my business back up kind of thing, because if I'm the only one there to make the money and I'm not making the money because I'm on maternity leave, you still have to build things back up, which was going really, really well. And then the coronavirus fiasco happened. And so then things really slowed back down. And so now I'm seeing kind of go back up from there. So now the referrals are starting to come in more. I started advertising in the magazines again, all of that stuff. So it's basically just kind of stay the course.
Getting back, so you want to get back to where you used to be, because now you
Yeah.
got a son, and obviously that's a lot to manage. And basically, I think that, well, actually, we talked about this. One of my assistants, she had a baby and she still wanted to keep working. You're like, no, that is a lot. And I was like, okay, yeah, I definitely agree with you there. What would your tips be to other people during coronavirus for ramping back up? What do you feel like doctors have been doing wrong, have been doing right, that you've seen on your end?
Um, in the beginning, I think it was a lot of, just staying present on social media and stuff like that, and sending out emails to your clients, I mean, like, hey, how are you doing? Kind of things, just checking in with people and staying, in the forefront of their mind. And then doing, small things that can help to just create some kind of income. So like, I formulated a monthly membership program and stuff like that, so that people that didn't want to dive into a big investment because they didn't know if they were going to have a job or not, could still do something about their health with doing like a, $40 a month monthly membership thing. um so I started with that when all of this stuff really kind of hit the fan, and now it's just kind of getting back to referrals, so I'm just kind of like keeping my finger on the pulse of it and like what's going on and stuff like that, and just kind of trying to ride the wave, so not being too pushy with anything, because everyone is kind of in the same boat. So yeah, does that
Yeah,
answer the question?
kind of. I mean, I know it's a really challenging time for coronavirus right now, right? And doctors inevitably all over are going to have challenging times. You
Yeah.
know, I'd love to know how you overcome them, because I'm sure this isn't the first time that you struggled in your practice, and or face a setback. You don't have to say struggle, because I
Yeah.
think it's pretty clear to everybody that's listening that you're going to bounce back. But for other doctors, actually, I guess, what would your tip be for them?
Oh man, I don't know. Budget. Like be smart about how you spend the money that you do have to keep your business afloat, and maybe look at thinking outside the box and bringing in some other options for clients and stuff like that that will help them. Um,
I think that is, we can dial in on that as well in terms of quote unquote budgeting, but also, understanding your practice. This is all, I hate to say this and make it robotic, but it's a math equation, right?
mhm.
Whether it's you're spending X amount on the newsletter, how much time per patient, what's your profit margin per patient. Now's the time, doctors, if you're not going to, because every episode I say write a book, or do the stuff you always wanted to do. But if you're not going to be writing a book, but understanding those metrics and reflecting and understanding how much time it takes to accomplish, whatever it is, time per appointment, time from, in your waiting room, all that kind of stuff, I think adds up and it compounds in the long run. So I definitely think that is important. What would one tip be if a doctor came in and, they said, hey, Dr. Erin, I want to scale up my practice. I want to grow. I just started whatever, I'm a year and a half in. What would you tell them?
um, Never stop learning, like always be taking classes or reading books. And then go location independent. Like that was seriously the best thing I ever did for my practice. I do all my appointments on the phone. Doesn't matter if they're in the same city, down the street, 5 states over, doesn't matter. I do all of them on the phone because then nobody has to travel. So they don't have to take time off work or time out of their, schedule, whatever they have going on. I've had appointments with people while they're sitting in airports, while they're on their lunch break, whatever. So it just makes you more accessible to people and more convenient to be location independent. And I always make it as much like an in-person appointment as possible. At the end of every call, I send like a lengthy email of just bullet points of what we went over in the call, and stuff like that, so that they don't have to take notes. They don't have to remember everything that you say. All of that stuff is just written out for them. And I'm writing it like, as I'm talking and doing the appointment and stuff like that.
I love that because a lot of doctors don't do that. And I think doing those little things that go above and beyond really make your practice stand out and make the patient feel like, wow, this person's definitely worth my time. And there's definitely a doctor that's better than the rest. So
It's all about compliance for people, and if you want people to comply, they have to remember what you said. So I'm just going to write it out for them, give them resources, give them everything that they need so that their compliance is much higher, which means their success rate is much higher, which means they're going to talk about you more, which means you're going to have more referrals. You have more successful clients than clients that just kind of like fizzle out, so
yeah, that's awesome. It sounds like you've automatically done things that, whether it's the newsletter or, giving them notes, et cetera, that are just enhancing or making it easier to get to the next step for your practice. I think that's what all doctors kind of need to think like that in terms of a system mindset of this happens. What can I do to make that part easier of my practice and to make the workflow much easier overall? So that's great. What was I going to say? I think this is awesome overall. The newsletter. Would you recommend every doctor, even if they're independent, um, of location, try a newsletter, or do you think it just really depends on the audience?
I think it really just depends on the audience. You have to know like the neighborhood, really, are the people that live there going to be interested in bettering their health? Because some people just aren't, which is sad, but they just aren't. Um, so just knowing that that is an interest in that area is really important.
I
You
think
don't
it's
just
unique
advertise
also.
in like any newsletter, it's not going to necessarily work.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unique also that you actually teach CrossFit, which probably enhances it as well, because like, hey, this is my audience, etc.
Hmm.
So that can definitely be more beneficial, which just goes back to like a recurring theme. A lot of doctors, when they listen to the podcast, told me that, they see the doctors are living their brand, quote unquote, or their values, and that's they tie the patients into their lifestyle, which I think is great. What were the biggest challenges of being independent in terms of location? Um,
Um, well, then you work from home. So you're just like not out and about, and like moving to a new city and working from home. At first, it was kind of challenging just because I was like, I'm always at home. I don't know anybody, but at the same time, like being a member of a CrossFit gym and stuff like that, you meet people that way. So that was really nice for many reasons. So I think that was one of the big things. But now a lot of people have a problem with working from home because then they feel like they're going to get distracted and do, laundry and stuff like that. And yeah, that does happen from time to time. But for the most part, I really love working from home because it's super convenient. I don't need to go anywhere or travel or put on makeup or anything like that,
there
So
are benefits for sure
there are
working from
major
home.
major benefits. Um, but yeah, so other roadblocks or things that would come up going location independent. I mean, I think that's really just the big one is making sure that you're still getting out in the public so that you're getting noticed, you know, and not just like sitting in your office 24/7 and staying at home 24/7. Um, yeah, I think that's
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot of things that you can do to help working from home, especially during coronavirus, and being a part of a local community, whether it's online or hopefully offline as well. And if it ties into your practice, that can be a huge benefit. And I think that we're actually also independent of location, and that really helps spread us out in terms of the clientele we can actually attract. So it's definitely, there's definitely benefits there. So thank you guys. And Dr. Erin, where can people find you?
my website is erinthole.com. Just my name, ERINTHOLE. So yeah, you can check me out there, learn more about what I do, how I work, all that good stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, connect with her, guys, if you have any questions as well. Thank you. And that's another episode of Vital Doc Talk.